Everything is
Actually, for full disclosure, I do the daf every day, also on Zoom, with this guy from Eretz Israel. And what I like is he speaks in Spanish, so I'm learning the Gemara in Spanish.
Wow.
Reading it obviously in Aramaic, and with the English in the art scroll. It's great. So now I appreciate what you're doing, because it makes me go back over all this issue.
So if you're doing Chazara. By the way,
I love it.
Mario is from Uruguay. And his
great.
native language is also Spanish.
George, are you?
No, George was from Guatemala.
You're related to the dentist, to Vera.
Vera, claro que sí.
Claro,
es mi sobrina.
Es mi dentista.
Ya viste, el mundo es chiquito.
Yeah.
Okay, Ernie, I'll shut up.
No.
Ernie, maybe you should start the Daf in Spanish. We have
You know what?
I'm
I'm already doing this stuff where I'm writing some stuff for my nieces and family in Guatemala. So it's what Ernie does is great. Unfortunately, I missed the opportunity when we were finishing that with Rambam to continue and go to learn, which I should have done, but that's life in a different lane.
You're gonna do it now. You're gonna do it now.
I'm learning because I love learning. That's the part that's great. So, and I enjoy being able to see you, and I'm very impressed. So I'll shut up. Keep going.
Ayin Gimel. So again, we say Hachanami. There's no proof regarding our shaila about can a baal be mefer without hearing. He's also telling her, when eventually we hear about the Nedarim, I'll be able to mefer it. So Freit the Gemara, what's he saying? Why is he giving a whole preface? Let him annul when he hears. So again, the Gemara answers, he's worried that he'll be busy, occupied with other things. So he wants to pre-annul so that the moment he hears, it's a null. Okay. Boy Rami Bar Chama. Here we're going to bring another sort of famous concept. Walter discussed the concept of tzvei. Here's also a famous concept, cheresh. You have someone who's deaf. We brought the pasuk v'shama isha, the husband. The word isha here has a mapik hey in the hey, so it doesn't mean isha the woman. Isha with a mapik hey refers to the baal, refers to the husband. So cheresh maushi yofer liishto. Can a deaf husband, does he have the ability to annul his wife's nedarim? If you're on the side that we just analyzed, that a husband has the right to be mefer without hearing, so mishum debar mishmahu, the words of the wife are hearable. They could be heard by somebody. So even though he specifically can't hear, it can be heard. Aval, that's in the case of a regular husband who can hear. So even though he doesn't physically hear it at this time, it's misugal to be heard. It's capable of being heard. But a cheresh, the lav bar mishmahu, but a deaf person who can't hear at all, he will lose a power to annul. Like the case of Hainud Rab Zera. Dam Rab Zera. There's a special din by Menachos when one of the korbanos that is brought is a flour offering. And you have to bring it with a certain amount of flour and a certain amount of oil. So the maximum you could have up to 60 sa'ah of flour, which is mixed with 1 lug of oil. If you have 61 sa'ah of flour, and only one lug of oil won't work. The Torah gave us this ratio. Now, the din is you have to mix the flour and the oil. What if you didn't mix it? So the halacha is anything that is roy lebila. Bila means mixing. So if you could mix it, the din is if you didn't mix it, it'll still work because it was roy lebila. It potentially could have been mixed. On the other hand, if you have a mixture 1:61, which is not roy lebila, then if you didn't mix it and you threw it on the mizbeach, it won't work. That's the concept of roy lebila. So the Amrav there, kol roy lebila ain bila makeves boy. Even if you didn't mix it, since it could have been mixed, it'll work. Kol she'ain roy lebila bila makeves boy. But if you got 1:61 and then you couldn't, it was immiscible, it was not mixable, then the lack of mixing will ruin the korban. So the Gemara wants to say here as well, since it's not roy to be heard by this cheresh, he can't annul. That's one side. Oidilma v'shama isha loma akev. Maybe he still retains the right to be annul. Toshma v'shama isha prat la'eshes cheresh. There's a Tannaitic piece of literature that says beferush. The husband has to hear. What kind of husband? A hearing husband. A husband that cannot hear cannot annul his wife's neder, or a father. And that's the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch in Yoredeya brings that lahalacha, that a deaf father or deaf husband cannot annul his wife's neder. Okay. Iboy lahu. Mal.
Ernie,
Yes,
Ernie,
sir. Yes, sir.
that means that the woman who marries is born to such a father has a problem.
Well, just she'll make nedarim, and she'll have to stick with the nedarim, or she'll
Yeah,
have to go to,
yeah.
or she'll have to go to a chacham to undo it. There's a certain leniency.
Is a woman allowed, for a man, is a woman allowed to go to a chacham also?
Absolutely, it's just it's like a loophole. If a woman makes a neder,
Is a woman allowed
the
to
husband can
bypass
get
her
rid of it
husband?
easily.
Is a woman allowed to bypass her husband to go to a chacham?
Well, remember, the husband has to. If the husband is silent for 24 hours, the neder takes hold.
No, but I want to ask you.
No, if the husband is mekayim the neder, she can go to a chacham and undo it. Yes.
So she can bypass it.
Yeah. But first, there's a kiyum of a neder. If he annuls the neder, she doesn't have to go to the chacham.
I understand, but if he doesn't annul it, she can still go to the chacham.
Yes. You can
That's
always
the
go to
halacha?
you can always go to a chacham to annul a neder.
Okay.
Iboilahu.
Ernie, can I ask you a question?
Yes. George.
What about in today's world where somebody is able to do sign language? Is that still considered as if you're not hearing the person? Or is it permissible that if the husband who can read sign language when he's deaf, is that considered as if he is hearing her?
That's a great question.
Great question.
That's a great question.
Great question.
I've been toying with this, so it's not new, but I've been toying with it.
Wow, that's a fantastic kasha.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great question. From what we see so far, even though since he's defined as a cheresh, right? He's a deaf person. So even though there's ability to communicate, he can also read. Let's say he could read language, and you could write something to him. So it doesn't seem that it has to do with communication. It has to do if in a mitzias he's cheresh. So he like cheresh shoyte v'katan. He's in a certain category that he seems to be removed from the ability to annul. That it doesn't seem to be talui, that it doesn't seem to be connected to his ability to be communicated to, either through sign language or through or through writing. But it's a good question. I mean, it has to be looked into more. That's just my answer.
I mean, that
Without looking.
my gut says that there's something about Shomea because of the way the Torah writes it that he's unable to fulfill. But it left me pondering because I said it's different in our world today. Anyway, I'll shut up.
You know,
By the
Ernie,
way,
you know
by the
would
way,
love such a Shiloh? You know would love such a Shiloh.
speaker.
Yeah.
Right. So hang on. I just was listening to a lecture recently, and our brain broken. We have areas in our brain that understand language. It's innate. That means spoken language versus learning how to read and write. They come from two different areas in the brain.
Places.
Every infant responds to sounds, phonetic sounds. It's hardwired into the brain. But there are a lot of people, and therefore there is no infant in the world that doesn't respond unless they have some kind of neurological damage to spoken language. But reading and writing.
Unless they did.
Now,
Unless they're deaf.
hang on. So sign language goes in that same area. It's hardwired. And there are infants that you can do sign language, they immediately pick it up. It's not
lip
like
reading.
writing.
Lip reading
It's
would be
like
the same.
language.
Lip reading would be the same.
I saw sign.
When you see sign, it has like sign language hardwired into somebody.
Yes, it's hard, just like language.
It goes to that part of the brain.
A 6-month, 9-month-old child begins to respond to phonemes. He says, "Mom, Dad." So that's hardwired. Reading and writing comes from a different area in the brain. They know this because if you see lesions in the brain, people have a stroke, and they maintain the ability perhaps to hear language, but they can't read and write. There's pathology where they lose the ability to understand what a noun is. So instead of the sky is blue, it'll just be blue, the blue. They lose that. Well, I'm bringing this up because sign language is this hardwired innately. And
Harold,
there was
Harold, no,
Yeah.
if this year wasn't recorded, I could explain something about sign language why we always understood it.
Well, when Mario's finished, I'll click the button.
By the way, there's a case of 500. They were orphans in Brazil or something like that, and they were all deaf, and they had created their own sign language innately, and nobody understood but they understood what it meant. Anyways, what George asked is a great question. But
By the way,
it may
that's
be
what they
related
do
to
on
Harris.
baseball, Harold. That's what they do on baseball.
They do on Facebook?
On baseball.
Oh, on baseball, but they have signs.
Oh, stealing signs.
But those kids in Brazil, did they do sign language with an accent?
That's good. Okay. Iboilahu. Now, by the way, we also know, in response to George, Chazal saw Cheresh, a true Cheresh who was a deaf mute. It's not because sometimes the Gemara will say Cheresh hamedaber, right? A true Cheresh cannot hear or speak, and Chazal viewed them as lacking intelligence. They're treated like a Cheresh shoita v'katan. A shoita is someone who's lost his faculties, and a katan is a minor. So, for example, they're not liable for averis. A Cheresh would have the same. What was that?
Well, deaf and dumb.
Right. So Cheresh, has a few strikes against him. It's not just that he can't hear. Okay. Iboiluhu. Baal mar sheyofer l'shtei nosha b'vasachas. In the times of Chazal, you can have multiple wives. Let's say he heard both of them made Nedarim at the same time. Can he annul at the same time? With one annulment, he takes care of both of them. Can that work? Since it says, V'shama isha yani osa specifically refers to one dafka, and perhaps he only has the right to annul one at a time. Olaf dafka, or maybe no. Omra vina toshma. So they bring a raya from the din of a sota woman. Sota woman is a husband and wife. The husband suspects his wife of infidelity. So in front of two Eidim, he warns his wife, I don't want you to go into a room alone with such and such person. So the warning is done in front of two Eidim. Then two Eidim see the wife go into the room alone with that person that was designated. We don't know what happened in the room. We don't know if they had intercourse or not. It's a suffix. But if the woman does that, the husband is not allowed to live with her anymore. And he has to divorce her without a ksuba unless she agrees to go up to the Beis HaMikdash and drink the sota waters. And if she drinks the sota waters and comes out alive, then it was clear that she was innocent. And in fact, she has a male child and the husband can go back live with her. If she was not innocent, she dies. Most of the women, when they were brought up, decided not to drink. And they were divorced without a ksuba. That's the process of a sota. So the din is like this, Toshma. Ein mashkin shtei soitos ka'achas. Let's say a husband had two wives. And he warns both of his wives, and they both go into a room. Can he bring both of them up at the same time? The answer is no. Why? Midnei shaliba gas bechaverta. When two women are together, they sort of get courage from one another. We want the woman to refuse to drink. We want her to be scared and that she won't drink. But by coming up with a pair of women, the two co-wives, sort of they will buck each other up and drink the water. We don't want that to happen. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Loman Hashem Uzeh, he says, I agree that we don't give two women to drink at the same time, but not for the reason you gave. Ela mishum shenemar v'hishka osal levada. It's also a diuk from the pasuk. The pasuk says, just like it says yani osa, only one woman at a time. The same thing by sota. So the halacha is a man cannot be made for b'vasachas. Mission. I in Gimel Amud Beis. George, we normally only do one blot, but today I'm doing two blot because I came home from Israel yesterday and I couldn't. I fell asleep too early, so we're making up yesterday's by doing two today. Normally we would just do one blot. Okay, Mishnah. Boigeres sheshoas shneimesar chodesh. A boigeres is a girl above the age of 12 and a half. The din is, if a man gives such a woman kiddushin, he has to take her to the chuppah within a year. If not, he has to already provide money for her mizonos. Normally, a husband's required to provide sustenance for his wife after chuppah. But let's say the husband is lazy and has gone beyond 12 months. So the din is, after 12 months, he has to already provide money for her. Almana shloishim yom. A woman's already been married, it's only after 30 days. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, hoyelu bayla chayve v'zoy. Since in both of these cases, after a year for a boigeres, after 30 days for an almana, the husband has to provide already for her food and clothing, then yofer. Then normally the husband only gets the right to annul nedarim after chuppah without the father. So even though there's been no chuppah here, since he's already paying the bills, he can already have the power to annul. However, the chachamim make a gzeira, ein abal mefer ad shetikanas l'shuso. For different reasons, which we're going to explore in the Gemara, chachamim say doesn't make a difference. He doesn't have the right to annul the nedarim until they actually go into the chuppah. Amar Rabba, Rabbi Eliezer, Mishnah Rishoina, Amar Davar Echad. That an earlier Mishnah says exactly like what Rabbi Eliezer said, that once a husband has financial responsibility, he can be made for Nedarim. This not. This was an early Mishnah. A girl who's never been married, she's a Besula. After she gets Kiddushin, can get up to 12 months before the husband has to start paying for her. Once 12 months passes and he doesn't take her into the chuppah, doesn't make a difference. He has to start paying her bills. And here's the big chiddush. If the husband is a Kohen, this woman who's a Yisraelis, can already start eating truma from the husband Kohen, even though they haven't gone under the chuppah yet. Now, if Reuven and Shimon were two brothers, and Reuven was married and he died, and this woman of Reuven's wife falls to Shimon, so Shimon is the Yavim, and he's a Kohen, he does not feed her truma until he actually lives with her. Okay. Let's say Reuven had given her Kiddushin and died. And now she falls to Shimon, the brother, and was under his domain as a Yavim for 6 months. Let's say it's 1 year minus 1 day. Or kulan b'fnei hayavim chasu yom echad. Or in front of the Yavim, a whole year less than 1 day. Eino ochelas betruma. Again, you have to wait 12 months. Zu Mishnah Rishoina. And that's how it was learned in the original Mishnah. However, came Beis Din, Shelachreim, a later Beis Din came, and because of various concerns that maybe she'll bring Truma home to her brothers and other concerns, until she's actually in the house of the husband, she can eat Truma. So Amarle Abaya, rejects the ability to say that the Mishnah Rishon and Rabbi Eliezer are saying the same thing. No. Demalohi. Ad kan Ashmina Mishnah Rishona. The Mishnah Rishona, which is allowing the eating of Truma, is only talking about Truma Drabanan. For example, you grow produce in a flower pot that's not connected to the ground. So midaraisa, you don't have to give Truma deraisa, but Truma Drabanan you have to give. So when it allows one of these husbands to feed Truma, it's only Truma Drabanan. Avon Nedarim, which is a matter of deraisa, maybe Amalo. Maybe he doesn't have the right even after 12 months. And Va'ad kan l'shama said Rabbi Eliezer l'gabi Nedarim. Maybe Rabbi Eliezer gives us the right to annul after 12 months when he has to provide financial responsibility. Kidrav Pinchas Mishrei Rav Amar Kola Noideres Aldas Bailei Noideres. When a wife makes Nedarim, she's living off the husband, and she's never going to make a neder unless the husband agrees to it. So the same thing, she's going to take into consideration his thoughts. That means perhaps Rabbi Eliezer would not go that far, even by Truma Rabbanon, after 12. Nedarim is a special case because women only will make Nedarim in front of the husband that's providing money for them. But when it comes to the din of even Truma Rabbanon, maybe the fact that he's providing parnasa has nothing to do with anything. Okay, we'll stop here. Now, just housekeeping. Tomorrow, the Daf Yomi will be at 7:30 instead of 8 o'clock because we teach halacha, Tzurbim Rabbanon, tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. We'll resume. And Mario, please send George the link to the Tzurbim Rabbanon.
I don't know if Mario's there.
Oh, okay. Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll send you that because we'll have to get you one of those volumes.
Okay.
Mario? He's not listening. I'll call him later. Okay, everybody have a nice day tomorrow.
Good night. See
George, nice to meet you.
It's
Bye.
a pleasure.
Right.
Thank you for having me.
you
Good night.
tomorrow.
Laila Tov.